Hello, good afternoon, September the 27th. Sunglasses are back on. It is a nice, bright, sunny day. We're supposed to get about 3 days of 75 to 78, and then back into the low 50s and freezing at night. For the foreseeable future, I don't think we're gonna get another warm spell, but we will see. We're gonna talk about American banking, big banking institutions, and this has popped into my mind, Zero Hedge headline about the $4 billion judgment against JP Morgan for mishandling an airline executive's estate. They defrauded about $4.7 million from this guy's estate. Big legal battle, $5 million in legal fees were racked up on the legal team fighting JP Morgan. And this family who, you know, had to obviously mourn what I would imagine would be a pretty substantial figure in their family, being an airline exec and being pretty monetarily well off. So, you know, they actually won $4 billion in punitive damages from JP Morgan, which is amazing. Good for them. I think that's probably a little bit overboard, right? You know, maybe 100 million would have been a little more appropriate, but you know what? If it's coming out of JP Morgan's pocket, thumbs up. Maybe they should rip it out of one of Mr. Jamie's hidden slush fund somewhere. That would be nice. But this brings us back to banking and you, banking and me. These banks are criminal in every sense of the word. I mean, they are. And look around. I mean, Wells Fargo's been loaded with scandals. Bank of America, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. They are the premier money launderers and money criminals of the world. They are professionals at it. They've been doing this, working very hard to eliminate competition so that they can basically be they're basically the gangsters of today, of modern society. You know, they are the money launderers, the drug dealers, the gun runners. You know, they support all those people, and they are waiting for their turn to take whatever they can from you, whether that's when your pension fails, and you keep your retirement accounts in some way, shape, or form with any of these institutions. Your life insurance, whatever it might be, you have to really be on top of that if you're dealing with any of these institutions, to make sure that what is said to be there is there, and then be ready to fight for it on the back end if it's not. These banks are in no way, shape, or form in business to serve you better. This can be seen most easily in the fact that, in law, as soon as you deposit any money into their bank, it goes from your asset to their asset. You are then basically that money is completely ripped and is put on their books as their asset. So in any event of a liquidity crisis, you have no obligation to that money. I think it's very important that anybody understands that, because if and when there's a banking hiccup, a liquidity crisis that is like a 2008 or worse, which the next one will be worse, they just get bigger, you can kiss those funds goodbye. It's just the name of the game. It's just like, you know, in 2008, people were finding out that their mortgage on their house was basically sold off, bundled and sold off of these mortgage-backed securities up to 100 different times. A chain of custody, 100 parties deep, 100 entities deep. It's astounding. That is astounding. The amount of leverage out there compared to the amount of liquid capital would just blow you away. So, you know, what do we do to protect ourselves? There's a lot of options out there to not be heavily invested in the banking system. Obviously, with a lot of these crypto tools coming on, keep in mind those options, study those options, because every single month there is new and better ways to keep your money in a crypto-backed currency safe and secure out of the banking system. Now, as of right now, it is beneficial to have a bank account for, you know, doing things like auto pay on your bills and stuff like that. Even in that instance, I would certainly try to go with a credit union. I can tell you right now, I'm doing my research, and I would like to do over 75% of all my banking in a crypto sense, because it gives you the ability to not only invest in an appreciable asset, appreciable currency, but it also gives you complete control at a moment's notice to get your cash. You're not treated like a criminal if you want to pull out, move your cryptos from one spot to another. Right now, you know, you go in, you ask for $5,000 in cash, and they're gonna go, oh, what are you using that for? You know, it's like, what fucking, or I shouldn't cuss on this video, I'm sorry. What business is it of yours what I do with my capital in which I let you use to leverage 10 to 1 for some nefarious act? And you're gonna give me a hard time like I'm part of some secret cell if I want to use, you know, my $5,000 to go buy a car off of Craigslist? And $10,000, forget about it. You know, you got to fill out all the federal paperwork. It's absolutely ridiculous, absolutely insane. And none of that is anything to do with international terror or any of that crap. It all has to do with the fact that you gave them their money. They now see it as their asset, and they have to keep a certain amount of liquidity on hand at every branch. They're supposed to anyway. And you make work for them if you pull out over $10,000. It's completely your right to do whatever you want with your money. So, you know, besides keeping a couple bucks at home for emergency purposes, you can dabble in cryptos, you can dabble in gold and silver, set up trusts for those things. You know, if you set up a trust with a law firm that you believe in, you can set all this stuff up in your estate. Even if, you know, you might say, well, I don't have that much money on an estate. You can set up an estate with 500 bucks. You start it, right? Anything you do have that you'd like to give to your kids, move it over to that. You know, move it into a trust. You know, there's options if you have pensions. The guys over at Perpetual Assets do self-directed IRAs. They dabble in crypto. You can use physical, precious metals. You can be in charge of your own stock portfolio, all that kind of stuff. I think this is a time in history where it's really important to pay mind to having how much control you have over your own personal finances, because you know, the baby boomer generation, you know, it was all fun and good. You know, they were making yield, they were making money, they were, you know, not only were they making money on their, you know, in their job, in their career, but they were making money in their investments. They didn't ask any questions, and for the most part, it worked out pretty darn well for most of them. I know some people obviously really got hurt in 2008, people that were retired or getting ready to retire that lost a lot. But for the most part, that generation got away with the apathy, the just, you know, blind trust in the system. But that's certainly a one-off, and history would tell you that. And I think anybody who thinks that the Western world is going to do better in the next 50 years than it has in the previous 50 years is high on something. Not sure what it is. So this video is just basically like, get your ducks in a row. I've got work to do. I was just talking with my wife about this over the last couple days. I'm gonna start moving some stuff around and make sure that that I know where everything is at all times. And I'm not particularly a fan of holding U.S. dollars that lose 6% a year. And you know, even in the, you know, in any kind of bank CD or whatever, you get lucky if you get, you know, 1.75%, right? So, you're getting poorer by holding on to dollars, even if your savings is staying the same. You are losing money every year at a pretty astounding rate. At the rate we're at now, you're going to lose over half of, let's say you had $100,000 in your bank account in some kind of savings, with CD, whatever, I don't care. You're in 10 years, you're going to lose half of it as far as purchasing power is concerned. So even if you're like, okay, well, I got a 10-year savings bond at 1.8%, inflation anywhere, unless we have a massive deflationary event. But if we have a massive deflationary event, the banks are going to go illiquid, and you're not going to be able to get that asset out anyway. So, that's, not even worth having the discussion about. So, just get educated on all your different ways. I mean, people have tons of different, tangibles they might stick some money into. You've got the super prepper types who might buy a box of 50 AR-15 upper receivers because it's dirt cheap right now, right? Those things are only going to probably go up, especially if there's any kind of further restriction on firearms. I know people sometimes will buy and get really good deals on ammunition and buy them. Well, if you had bought, 10 years ago, if you went ahead and bought 2 million rounds of 22 ammo at 2 cents a piece, yet that purchase is worth 4 or 5 times what it is now. So, there's, it just depends on what kind of realm you fall into. As far as that, there's certain things that are in a bubble right now, like fine arts and these stylish cars, these old vintage cars that might be worth, I mean, they're going for ridiculous amounts of money. And that's only something somebody would be interested in if they, had some kind of liquidity over $1 million anyway, right? That you wouldn't even think about any of that stuff unless you were probably over the $5 to $10 million estate, had a really large estate. So that's not really worth the discussion. But if you're not going to use the US dollar to hold value for a long term, there are options out there, and there's some really, really good options out there, especially in the crypto space. And obviously, if anybody wants to have gold and silver, I never think that's a bad bet either. So, you think about it. It's not always a good idea, I don't think, to give giant criminal organizations too much of your liquidity, especially when they claim that it's theirs and not yours right after you give it to them. It's called stealing. And even if they don't steal it, the Federal Reserve monetary policy is continuing to steal it. So just some food for thought here as I head back. Got to run some errands. Busy day or busy afternoon for me. So I will catch you all later. Thank you.